What's going on? What's going on? It's been a little minute since I made a video, and I was inspired by a close friend of mine. We was having a conversation last night, and we was chopping up, about a lot of stuff, and it made me want to come through and make a video, basically just to talk about how a lot of our people really still don't know what Africa provided to the world. You would think by now, with so many teachers out there, so many good teachers out there, that's still with us now, that's not with us anymore, with so many teachers out there, you would have thought, at least I did, I kind of thought this stuff was becoming common knowledge now, you know what I mean? But that just goes to show you that, we still got to push the envelope on teaching African history. Okay, a lot of African history, it has been hidden, it has been covered up. And that's what a lot of our ancestors was doing. Was teaching us about African history because it's something that they wanted to hide and cover up and not let it be shown or let it be seen, or let it be known. People such as John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben, people like that. So basically, I'm just gonna come real quick, and hopefully I can touch the important areas that I feel was important to bring through to this video. So basically, the modern cultures, or no, scratch that. Basically, today's religions, Hebrew, Arabic, or Islam, Christianity, Catholic. These things took form after coming in Africa. These people were able to write stories after coming into Africa. These people, civilizations, wasn't nothing until they came into Africa. It's now being understood that the Israelites, or people that you call the Israelites or the Hebrews, they're actually come from the land of Canaan, which is a Mesopotamian region. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Y'all have to please, but I'm pretty much right. I believe I am. But if I am wrong, y'all gotta, you also have to do your own research, and you can't never just take nobody's word for nothing. Everybody's everybody's subject to an error. Anybody can make a mistake. Anybody could be wrong. Ain't nobody perfect. So you always have to study this stuff for yourself, because everything just can't be said. It's too much information. It's just, it's too much to it. Everybody just can't, or anybody just can't give it all to you. You gotta want to search this out for yourself. So basically what I was trying to get to is that when you get to talking about the more earlier regions like Canaan and Sumeria and places like this, back when those areas was thriving, before it was a group of people that you would call Hebrews or anything like that. These people were pretty much they were pretty much black people. They were pretty much black people. There's a book that you can get called I want to say it's the Temple of the Anunnaki. And don't really let that if you go get this book, don't really let that book don't let the title fool you. It's really not a one of them books that's not backed up by evidence or factual, tangible evidence. It's not a off into the clouds kind of story type of thing. You feel what I'm saying? Because a lot of times you get people who take mythology stories and speak about them like it's a reality. Like they'll take mythology stories and they will fancy certain parts of the mythology story to be certain real aliens and things like that, and don't leave it in the context of a myth story, But basically what the guy talks about in his book is that he talks about how basically he talks about how life basically started, which everybody pretty much knows this, is that life basically started in Africa, in the southern regions of Africa. And he showed how the African people basically migrated up into that region of Sumeria and Canaan and that area up there, and basically saying that these was the same peoples. These was the same peoples for a period of time. So I say that to say is that when you're dealing with those ancient Sumerians and the ancient Canaan, and these was black people, they wasn't the exact same people that you would have lived there now, or at a more earlier date, but not the exact as earlier date is when way back in the day. You see what I'm saying? Because obviously through admixture, the people began to become a different people, like what you have here in America, or what you were seeing took place in Egypt. Egypt used to be a black land. That's what Kemet is. Kemet, the black land. All right, but after invasions and admixtures, it's not the same people there no more. At one period of time, Egypt was a black land. So that's basically what the point I'm trying to make is with Canaan and Sumer. And actually, when you, if you ever get into any of their stories, ancient Mesopotamian stories, it talks about one of the people having dreadlocks. You know what I mean? So yeah, these was black people. But the Hebrew and Islam, these people, society thrived after coming in contact with Africa and pretty much Egypt for the most part. As well as the Greeks. We all should know the Greek story by now, but some of us don't. And for those that don't, I'll say this briefly. When Alexander came in, Egypt was, on its last leg. It wasn't as powerful as it was no more. Africa and specifically Egypt and that region right there, it was constantly being attacked, throughout history. So it was just like people was constantly trying to get into Africa, and it's almost like they was being attacked from all sides. You know what I mean? You got the Persians, you got the Greeks, So, these people was, wanting to come into Africa and, take over. So when the Greeks came in, their civilization began to thrive from coming in to Kemet, what you would call Egypt. That's when their civilization began to thrive. That's when they began to form a writing system. A good book you can read, I always talk about this book, I probably said it several times in my video, is the book by Walter Williams. I forget what the book is called, but basically he's breaking down the origins of Christianity. It might be the origins of Christianity. And even though I don't believe with everything he say in the book, but for the most part, that's a very good book, because you get the story and the historical record on what happened with the Greeks, how they came in, and how that whole situation came about. And he talks about in that book how how the ancient Egyptian scribes provided a script for their language so they can actually begin to write, and how they actually formed a deity for them by the name of Serapis, and how Serapis goes into the Christianity thing, and how Serapis was the early form of Christianity. You understand? So, and if you look up Serapis now, you can if you just Google it, you will see what come up is Serapis Christum or Christum or something like that, something with Christ in it. So, that goes to show you. And basically that was the first time that the image of a white person was deified. You understand what I'm saying? So the Greeks came through, they began to get powerful information. And that was the beginning of the white world to begin to get knowledge through the Africans. You understand what I'm saying? Through the Africans. You have to study Egypt. You have to study Kemet. I mean, it should be a law for every person of every African descent to study Kemet. I mean, because to be totally honest with you, any other culture is really interested in ancient Kemet, but the whole plan was, and the whole demise was to try to disconnect you from that greatness, so you won't understand who you were and who they were. They wanted to hide who these people really were. They wanted to hide that. They wanted to disconnect that. So a lot of times, and I believe how we began to learn a great deal about the ancient Egyptians was through the Greeks, because the Greeks they revered them very highly. They revered their culture very highly. I mean, all you have to do is study the Greek and parallel and study ancient Kemet, and you will see that they was basically I mean, they basically like copied it. Of course they had their own deities and different names, like you have Apollo for Ra, and Zeus, he might be Amun, you understand what I'm saying, or Amen, but it's like basically was the same thing. They had a great deal of respect for Isis or Aset. You understand what I'm saying? So this is the beginning of this is the beginning of these people getting knowledge, coming through, and and they began to do their thing like that. And when the Greeks got their knowledge, that was the beginning. That was the beginning of the European race to do their thing. And during the Alexandria times, that region was it was mixed in with a lot of different schools of thought. You had the Greeks, you had the Hebrews, and you had Indian culture, and you also had Persian influence. And then after the Greeks ruled, the Romans actually came and took over after the Greeks. So now, after the Alexandrian rule, you later have Romans there, so you got the Romans, you got the Greeks, you got you got all of these schools of thought mixed in one. So this time period prior, this is the beginning of the forming of Christianity and basically Judaism also. And Islam will come a little later. You understand what I'm saying? But this is where they formed, this is where they started to form these stories from in this period of time. And during this period of time, basically during the time of the Greeks taking foothold in Egypt, and then the Romans coming in, this is the time that you have what they call the Hellenistic period, or the Hermetic period, or the Gnostic period. So this is the time when you have the Greeks, who was fully submerged in this Egyptian culture, or the Kemet, the knowledge of Kemet. They was fully submerged in it. So now you have the Romans coming in to suppress the knowledge. They came in to suppress the knowledge. Okay, so now you have the Greeks, who are hiding books, and the Hebrews, they're hiding books, because these people, sacred knowledge is being destroyed. They burnt down the Library of Alexandria, was a great library of historical teachings, probably from the beginning of time. Understand what I'm saying? So they destroyed all that. So all we have now is fragments, of this great knowledge and of this great history. And from these fragments is what you get your freemasonry, is what you get your occult, is what you get your esoteric knowledge. We have all of this just from the fragments of the little pieces of information that the Greeks knew and learned, and the little pieces of information that the Persians learned through their little period of time that they took a foothold in Egypt, through the little pieces of information that they left through Zoroastrianism and Mithras, and the little pieces of information that we have left through the early Hebrew, little pieces of information that we have left, from the Sumerians. You understand what I'm saying? But the Sumerian culture was very similar to ancient Kemet culture. So it's obvious that they was heavily influenced by the ancient Africans. It's a big thing now. It's a big debate about what culture came first, the Sumerians or the Egyptians. But it's clear to see that the Egyptians came first. All you have to do is follow the migration patterns, and you will see how the knowledge spread up there, I talked about that early in the video. I told you what book you can get. And there's many more books that probably talks about that. So you gotta understand that this Hebrew and this Arabic, and I'm gonna cut this video short because this is the big point that I wanted to make, and it was kind of long and drawn out. But anybody who has the attention span to watch this video, the ones who has the attention span to watch this video is the ones who deserve to get the knowledge or to get inspired. Cause I ain't saying I'm the the big great teacher. Of course, my name is Grandmaster Sire, but that pertains more to the rapping, to the music that I do. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm a student and I'm a messenger. I'm a student and I'm a messenger. But what I came to realize is that, honestly, and if anybody got any information to counterattack what I'm about to say, bring it so I can see it and I can research it and I can get it right. I can be corrected, and if I'm wrong, I want to be corrected. But what I came to realize is that through my research is what I found, that the Hebrew and all of these, what you call Semitic cultures, they actually came through the Greek. Even the Hebrew came through the Greek. The Hebrew peoples, they was in ancient Kemet, for some time too. But for the fact of the matter is that the Hebrew and the Greek, it was kind of like the same time period, because they was right there with the Greeks. You understand what I'm saying? But the Hebrews put a lot of things that they learned from the Greek inside of their own school of thought. And that's just a fact, y'all. You got to go check that out, because what you realize is that the oldest Bible we have is a Greek Bible. Okay? You got the Codex. I forgot how to pronounce it. It's Sinaiticus, some along them lines. But the oldest Bible is a Greek Bible, and a lot of them stories is very different from the stories that we have now. But dealing with these Greek philosophers, Pythagoras and all of these guys, the Hebrew culture, they benefited from the teachings of these guys. Plato, if that's how you say his name, the what they call gematria, if I'm saying that right, and that was applying numbers to words and coming up with a numerical value for certain words. Okay, that's something that the Hebrew culture extracted from the Greeks. You understand what I'm saying? So basically, man, the Greeks really jumped this thing off for the non-African civilizations. The Greeks was the jump off for it. And Hebrew too, but you know, the thing about the Hebrews is that one thing you can also really understand is that the early Greeks that was fully submerged into ancient fully submerged in the ancient Egyptian culture. If you study gnostic texts, they was fully in disagreement with the Hebrew school of thought, because they claimed that Yahweh, the secret name of God in the Hebrew culture, that spells the letters Yo, Hey, Vav, Hey, which is supposed to spell what people were saying Yahweh or Jehovah. But I believe that the pronunciation, I guess, should be Yahweh, because it's Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. They said that that's in the Greek school of thought, in the gnostic schools, they said that that's a demigod and it's not the most high God. And that's why he was a jealous God, because he wasn't the most high God, and he wanted to fool the human beings here into making them believe that he was the only God, and he was a demigod. He wasn't the most high. He wasn't the most high God. You know, it was a higher God than him that created him. You understand what I'm saying? They called him Identiboth, or some along them lines. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, so as you can see, they was in conflict with the Hebrew thing. You understand what I'm saying? And you know, in the gnostic schools, you know, they was basically keeping that essence alive of the ancient Egyptian culture, even though it was through a different language. But you know, the essence of it was still ancient Egyptian. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why they talked about, that's why in the gnostic scriptures or texts, that's why they talked about Yahweh, or just calling him a demigod. That's why they say he was a violent God. That's why they said he was you know, telling people that they had the right to go kill people and do things like that to take their land, because they basically was saying that he was an evil God. Saying he was an evil God, and that and that, you know, he didn't want man to obtain knowledge. He didn't want man to obtain knowledge to learn good and evil, because if man obtained knowledge to learn, get the knowledge of good and evil, he could be as powerful as a god, or even more powerful to a god, because the secret is that the gods is here to serve men. You understand what I'm saying? So that's really interesting. Of course, in the Hebrew, it talks about Moses was learnt in all the ways of the Egyptians. You understand what I'm saying? So that's just a little ding ding situation, you know, to set the alarm to tell you that, you know, their civilization learned, you know, from the ancient Egyptians, from the Kemetite culture. But through my research, you know, I found that all of these people basically came through ancient Kemet, but, you know, furthermore, it was the Greeks that they was, you know, building off of. You know, the Greeks was the first. Before the Greeks was the Persians. But the Persians wasn't there that long inside of ancient Kemet. And, you know, the Persians, they was like a real shrewd people. So, you know, the ancient Africans at that time, they wanted the Greeks to come in, because they just wanted to get the damn Persians out of there, because the Greeks, they had a lot of respect for the Egyptian culture. So basically, I just want you guys to know that the world we living in today is all built off of Greek knowledge. These people, they revere the Greeks to be the bringers of knowledge to the world, but we know that the Greeks didn't have nothing without the ancient Africans. So we know it's actually the ancient Africans that that brought us this information. So if they standing on the shoulders of the Greeks, they're actually standing on the shoulders of the ancient Africans. So, you know, in all of these books and all of these scholars, you know, they try to give the credit to the Greeks. They try to give all this credit to the Greeks without saying where the Greeks got this knowledge from. But if you study the Greeks and if you study their works, then you know it's plain and simple. You can see it for yourself. And before I go, I also want to say is that the language that we speak in today, if you study Greek, is very similar to the language that we speak in now. And the Greek comes from the Coptic, I believe, or maybe it's Greek, then it's Coptic, or Coptic and Greek. Y'all have to study that and see which one comes first. But you will see that the words are very similar. But the Greek and this Coptic, this comes straight out of an African language. You know what I'm saying? This comes straight out of an African language, man, because, you know, you had the Metal Neter, and you had the Hieratic, and you had the Demotic. And the Hieratic was a priest language, a priest language for the most part. For a period of time, it was made, you know, for the priest to write in. And the Demotic was a public writing system for the average person or people to be able to convey information for. And, you know, then the Greeks came in situations like that. So, and of course, they made a writing script for the Greeks. And that was for public purposes also. So, you know, this Greek writing script has a connection to the older writing scripts. That's, you know, it's different signs, but you know, it's kind of based off the same formula. So this writing system is coming from the older writing system, and our writing system is coming from that older writing system because they're standing on the shoulders of the Greeks. You see what I'm saying? So that's another thing too. So it's really important for people in America of African descent to really know and realize that you're actually not that far from the knowledge of your ancestors as you think. You know what I'm saying? You're really not that far from the knowledge of your ancestors as you think, because these people are standing on the shoulders of your ancestors. You know, not in a respectful way, not in a respectful manner, but they wouldn't have it if it wasn't for them. You understand what I'm saying? And this society that we live in is based off the ancient Greeks and the Romans. You understand what I'm saying? And the Romans with the Latin. So, you know, that's all I wanted to hone in and bring out is that, you know, study history. You know, you have to study history, and you have to, as a black person, you have to constantly bring out the truth about your ancestors and, you know, what they brought forth to the world, because they deserve it. And Africans all around the world need to know who they are and what they are connected to. With that, I'm gonna go. You know, so, you know, holla at your boy.